The warp screamed. Not the usual howling of daemons or the psychic death wails of a billion souls. This was different. This was the sound of reality itself fracturing, of spiritual energy so foreign and so pure that the immaterium recoiled like flesh from flame. Across the galaxy, astropaths collapsed, bleeding from their eyes. On Holy Terra, the Astronomicon flickered, and in the webway beneath the Imperial Palace, the Emperor's eternal vigil stuttered for the first time in 10,000 years. Through the breach came Ichigo Kurosaki, Zangetsu blazing in his hand. He crashed into reality above Terra's orbital defense grid with the force of a dying star. Ichigo tumbled through the void, spiritual pressure hemorrhaging from his form in waves that warped space itself. The last thing he remembered was pursuing a hollow through a Garganta gate. Then something had seized him, pulled him sideways through dimensions that shouldn't exist, and spat him into this nightmare. The planet below was wrong. Ichigo's Reiatsu sense, honed through years of perceiving souls and spiritual entities, reeled at what it detected. Terra was a furnace of psychic energy, a billion souls crushed together in hive cities that stretched across continents. But beneath it all, buried in the heart of the world, something vast and terrible and divine, pulsed with power that made even Aizen's transcendent form look like a candle before the sun. "What the hell is this place?" Ichigo muttered, stabilizing himself with Reiatsu manipulation. His black Bankai Shihakusho whipped around him as he oriented toward the planet. No spirit world, no soul society. His connection to Zangetsu felt strained, like trying to speak through water. Then the lance strikes came. Macro cannons erupted from orbital fortresses the size of cities. Defense lasers capable of carving apart battleships converged on his position. Ichigo moved, Bankai speed carrying him through the barrage in a blur of shunpo. Explosions painted the void behind him, but he was already gone, descending toward the planet's surface through sheer instinct. "They're shooting at me!" He deflected a lance beam with Zangetsu's blade, the impact sending shockwaves through his arms. "I just got here!" The atmosphere of Terra hit him like a wall. Pollution, industrial waste, the stench of countless billions living in squalor beneath monuments of gold and stone. Ichigo's eyes widened as he plummeted through clouds that tasted of corpse starch and promethium exhaust. Below, a city stretched from horizon to horizon, Gothic spires kilometers tall, cathedrals that could swallow mountains, adamantium walls that made soul society's Seirei look quaint. He landed in the Imperial Palace district with the impact of an orbital strike. The crater glowed with residual Reiatsu as Ichigo rose from the center, Zangetsu resting on his shoulder. Golden-armored giants surrounded him immediately, 10 feet tall, each one radiating killing intent that would have paralyzed a lesser being. Their armor was a work of art and murder, auramite gleaming with inner fire. Guardian spears hummed with disintegration fields. These warriors moved with the certainty of gods. The Adeptus Custodes, the Emperor's personal guard, the 10,000. "Stand down," Ichigo said, raising his free hand. His substitute Soul Reaper badge meant nothing here. "I don't want to fight you. I'm just lost. I need to figure out where—" The lead custodian's spear thrust forward at superhuman speed. Ichigo's instinct saved him. He parried with Zangetsu, and the clash of blade on Guardian spear sent a shockwave that shattered windows across 6 city blocks. The custodian's eyes widened fractionally behind his helmet. Nothing should have stopped that strike. "Xenos filth," the custodian intoned, his voice resonating with genetically enhanced authority. "You have violated the sacred soil of Terra. You have brought your corruption within sight of the Emperor's throne. There is no mercy for such heresy. There is only death." "I'm human," Ichigo protested, deflecting 3 more strikes in rapid succession. The custodes moved like water, perfectly coordinated, each attack flowing into the next. They were faster than captains, stronger than most espada. "Listen to me, I'm not your enemy." "Your nature is written in your soul," another custodian stated, circling behind Ichigo. "Part human, part hollow abomination, part something else we do not recognize. You are anathema given form." Ichigo's blood ran cold. They could sense it. His hybrid nature, Shinigami, Hollow, Quincy, was visible to them somehow. In this universe, that made him a monster. The assault intensified. Guardian spears became a storm of auramite and disintegration fields. Ichigo was forced to release more power, his spiritual pressure crushing the ground beneath his feet. Zangetsu's blade sang through the air, parrying strikes that could have split adamantium. He moved in shunpo bursts, trying to create distance, but the custodes anticipated his movements with supernatural precision. "I don't want to hurt you," Ichigo shouted, blocking a strike aimed at his throat. His hollow mask flickered across his face instinctively, white bone, red markings, and the custodes' reaction was immediate. "Daemon!" The roar came from 50 golden warriors simultaneously. Bolt rounds erupted from guardian spears. Each projectile was an explosive round blessed with anti-daemon wards, designed to banish creatures of the warp. They detonated against Ichigo's Blut Vene, the Quincy defensive technique absorbing the impacts, but the blessed silver burned. Ichigo gasped, his hollow mask vanishing as pain lanced through his spiritual form. Whatever that ammunition was, it reacted violently with his hollow powers. Above, more forces were converging, sisters of silence, their eyeless helms tracking his position, inquisitorial stormtroopers, entire regiments of the Imperial Guard mobilizing across the palace district, and deeper, in the heart of the fortress, something immense stirred. The presence Ichigo felt from orbit turned its attention toward him, like the eye of an angry god. Then the voice came, not through ears, but directly into his soul. "What are you?" The psychic pressure was overwhelming. Ichigo dropped to one knee, Zangetsu planted in the ground for support. The voice was ancient, powerful beyond comprehension, and utterly unhuman in its cold assessment. This was the being at Terra's heart. This was what these warriors died to protect. This was the God Emperor of mankind. If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want them in down in the comments below. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war.
Ichigo's mind burned under the Emperor's gaze. It wasn't a question, it was an invasion, a psychic dissection that tore through his memories like solar wind through parchment. Every battle, every loss, every person he'd saved. The Emperor saw it all in microseconds, cataloging his hybrid soul with the cold efficiency of a machine analyzing defective components. Shinigami, Hollow, Quincy, Human. The voice resonated with something approaching fascination. You are 4 species merged into one impossible existence. You should not be. Get out of my head! Ichigo growled through gritted teeth. His spiritual pressure flared, pushing back against the psychic intrusion. For a heartbeat, he felt the Emperor's surprise. Nothing should have been able to resist that probe. The custodians used his momentary distraction. 3 guardian spears struck simultaneously, throat, heart, spine. Ichigo moved on pure instinct, Zangetsu's blade intercepting all three in a circular parry that shouldn't have been possible. The shockwave leveled a nearby administratum building. 300 scribes died without knowing why. "I said I don't want to fight!" Ichigo's eyes flashed with desperation and anger. He released a burst of spiritual pressure that forced the custodians back 3 steps. 3 steps was an eternity for warriors who had never retreated in 10,000 years. The lead custodian, Shield Captain Valdor's successor, spoke with absolute certainty. "You claim peace while emanating the power of a greater demon. You wear the mask of warp spawn. You resist the Emperor's judgment. These are the actions of corruption given flesh." "I'm not corrupted!" Ichigo's hollow mask flickered again, instinctive response to danger. Wrong move. The custodians saw only confirmation of demonic taint. Bolt fire erupted from 50 directions. Ichigo's shunpo carried him skyward, but the custodians anticipated even that. They'd been fighting warp entities for millennia. They knew how demons moved through folded space. Guardian spears hurled like javelins caught him mid-flash, grazing his shoulder, his thigh. Holy silver burned through his shihakusho. He landed hard on a cathedral's golden spire. Below, the imperial palace stretched in every direction, a fortress city within a fortress world. Somewhere in its heart, behind a million defenses, the god emperor sat entombed on his golden throne, the psychic beacon that guided humanity through the warp, the dying deity whose will was absolute law. Ichigo's Reiatsu sense detected something else approaching, not the custodian's perfect killing intent, something hollow, empty where souls should be. The sensation made his skin crawl. Sisters of Silence emerged from teleportarium gates, their black armor absorbing light. They moved in perfect silence, weapons raised, and with their presence came nothing, absolute psychic null. Where they walked, the warp itself died. Ichigo felt his powers diminish, not disappear, but strain, like fighting with weights on every limb. His spiritual energy was being suppressed by their mere existence. These women were natural anti-psychics, evolution's answer to the warp. To them, he was just another psychic threat to be neutralized. "This is insane," Ichigo muttered, calculating odds. 50 custodians, 200 Sisters of Silence, entire Imperial Guard regiments converging, and above it all, the Emperor's attention pressing down like the weight of a star. "There is no home for you here." The Emperor's voice was colder now, analytical. "You are anathema to the warp, yet touched by it, a contradiction that threatens the balance of my domain. Surrender or be destroyed." "I don't surrender to anyone," Ichigo said quietly. "Not Aizen, not Yuok, not you." He released Bankai's true speed. The world blurred. Ichigo moved between heartbeats, Zangetsu's blade singing through air as he deflected bolt rounds, parried guardian spears, and avoided the sisters' null field radius. He wasn't trying to kill, just survive, just create space to think. Every strike aimed to disarm, to disable, to escape. But the custodians were learning. They tracked his movements, predicted his patterns. One caught his blade mid-strike, armor screeching as Zangetsu's edge carved through auramite. Impossible. That armor was proof against demon-forged weapons. The custodian's helmet turned fractionally, reassessing threat level upward. "Captain General," the warrior voxed. "Request Dread Host deployment. This entity possesses Primarch-level combat capability." Ichigo's blood ran cold. He'd heard that word in the psychic echo. Primarch. beings powerful enough to conquer worlds. They thought he was that dangerous. A new presence arrived on wings of fire. Vertically deployed assault ram pierced the clouds, and from it came warriors in midnight blue armor, smaller than custodians, but radiating power that made Ichigo's hollow instinct scream warnings. Their armor was inscribed with wards that hurt to look at. Psychic hood helms pulsed with contained power. Gray cranes, demon hunters, warriors whose purpose was killing things exactly like what they thought Ichigo was. Their leader raised a nemesis force sword wreathed in holy lightning. "In the name of the Emperor, let none survive." Ichigo felt the warp twist around them, battle cant in a language that wounded reality itself. Exorcism prayers designed to banish demons back to the immaterium. The words struck his spiritual form like hammers, trying to unravel the hollow component of his soul. Pain, real, burning pain that made his mask flicker across his face involuntarily. The gray crane saw this and attacked as one. Ichigo raised Zangetsu, knowing he was about to fight for his life against an enemy that believed with absolute certainty he was evil incarnate. In their universe, they might be right. Enough! The Emperor's command froze every warrior mid-strike. Custodians, sisters, gray cranes, all halted as if strings had been cut. Only Ichigo remained free, gasping, bleeding blessed silver from a dozen wounds. "Bring him to the throne room, alive. I would speak with this impossibility."
They dragged Ichigo through the imperial palace in chains forged from something that burned his wrists. Null shackles, the custodians called them, restraints designed to suppress psychic power. They strained against his spiritual pressure, but held, barely. Each step sent holy silver poison deeper into his system from the blessed bolt wounds. The corridor stretched for kilometers. Gothic arches soared overhead, each one carved with skulls and eagles. Statues of armored giants lined the walls. Primarchs, the Emperor's sons, half legend and half warning. Ichigo felt their stone eyes judging him as he passed. "Where are you taking me?" he asked through gritted teeth. The shield captain didn't answer. None of them spoke. The custodians moved with mechanical precision, guardian spears never wavering from execution position. One wrong move and they'd end him without hesitation. The Grey Knights followed behind, still chanting their exorcism prayers under their breath. The words scraped against Ichigo's soul like sandpaper. His hollow powers writhed inside him, wanting to manifest, to fight back. He forced them down. Losing control now would prove every accusation correct. They descended, deeper into the palace, past security checkpoints that could withstand orbital bombardment, through doors 30 meters tall, inscribed with wards that made Ichigo's eyes water, past silent sentries who'd stood watch for centuries. The temperature dropped. The air grew thick with something Ichigo couldn't name. Not Ryatsu, not quite psychic energy, but close, oppressive, divine, wrong. Finally, they reached it. The throne room. Ichigo's breath caught despite everything. The chamber was vast enough to swallow mountains. The ceiling disappeared into darkness kilometers overhead, and at the far end, bathed in the light of 10,000 torches, sat the golden throne, the emperor of mankind. He was a corpse. That was Ichigo's first thought, a desiccated, mummified thing barely held together by machinery and faith. Tubes and cables snaked into withered flesh. Life support systems the size of buildings hummed and clicked around the throne. The skeletal face was barely recognizable as human. But the presence, the psychic weight radiating from that ruined form made every deity Ichigo had encountered feel like shadows. This being held back the warp itself through sheer will. This dying god was all that stood between humanity and extinction. and its eyes, ancient, weary, utterly inhuman, fixed on Ichigo with terrible focus. Approach. The command wasn't optional. Invisible force dragged Ichigo forward, his feet scraping across marble inlaid with gold. The custodians remained at the chamber's edge, silent watchers to whatever judgment would come. Ichigo stood before the golden throne, chains rattling. He met those inhuman eyes and refused to look away. You wanted to talk? Fine, talk. Something that might have been amusement flickered across the psychic link. Defiance, even now, you stand before a god and show no fear? I fought gods before. One tried to rewrite reality. Another wanted to destroy the Soul King and collapse existence. You don't scare me just because you're sitting on a fancy chair. The temperature plummeted. Every custodian's hand tightened on their guardian spear. Ichigo had just committed blasphemy that warranted instant execution. But the Emperor's psychic presence shifted. Not anger, calculation. You speak of metaphysical entities beyond your reality's dimensional barriers. The Soul King, a keystone being maintaining universal structure? Fascinating. Your universe operates on different fundamental laws. Yeah, well, your universe seems to run on suffering and industrial nightmares, Ichigo shot back. I've seen your cities, the people crushed together in darkness, the soldiers dying by the millions. You call yourself their protector, but you've turned them into slaves. Slaves who live. Would you prefer they be free and extinct? The question hung in the air like a blade. Ichigo wanted to argue, but something about the Emperor's certainty made him hesitate. He thought of the void war he had seen during his descent, the orbital defenses, the fortifications. This wasn't a civilization at peace. This was a species at war with the galaxy itself. You do not understand yet, but you will. I sense your power, Ichigo Kurosaki. You can sever souls, destroy spiritual essence permanently. In your reality, you fought hollow spawn and divine tyrants. How do you know my name? Ichigo's eyes narrowed. I have walked through your memories. I know everything you are. And I know what you could become. Your power, adapted to this reality, could destroy demons permanently. No banishment, true death. You could be humanity's weapon against the warp itself. I'm not a weapon, Ichigo said coldly. Not yours, not anyone's. Then you are a threat. Psychic pressure slammed into Ichigo like a tidal wave. The Emperor's will, focused into a single point, bore down on his soul, testing, probing, searching for weakness, for corruption, for any indication of what this impossible being truly was. Ichigo's spiritual pressure erupted in response. His Ryatsu flared, pushing back against the psychic assault. For a moment, just a moment, the two forces were equal. The Soul Reaper's determination against the God Emperor's will. Then both withdrew simultaneously. The Emperor's withered face shifted fractionally. Remarkable. You resisted. That should not be possible.
The inquisitorial conclave convened in a chamber that had witnessed 10,000 years of judgment. 50 inquisitors from across the Imperium summoned by astropathic urgency when word spread that something had breached Terra's defenses and survived audience with the Emperor himself. Ichigo stood in the center, still shackled, surrounded by weapons trained on his head. The custodians had moved him here directly from the throne room, with the Emperor's final command echoing in everyone's minds. Determine his nature, then determine his use. Inquisitor Covenant spoke first, ancient, her face more augmetic than flesh, eyes replaced by targeting arrays that saw into spectrums beyond human comprehension. The xenoform designate Ichigo Kurosaki.
Analysis indicates hybrid physiology incompatible with known taxonomic classifications. Recommendation: immediate termination and dissection. Premature, countered Inquisitor Eisenhorn, his voice carrying weight of centuries. The Emperor stayed our hand. That indicates value. We should investigate before we execute. The Emperor also deemed 9 Primarchs irredeemable. Divine tolerance is not divine approval. Ichigo watched the debate with growing frustration. They talked about him like he was a specimen, not a person. Just like Soul Society's Central 46 had judged Rukia, just like the Quincy had judged all Hollows. Same arrogance, different universe. "I'm standing right here," he said. "You want to know what I am? Ask." Silence fell. Several Inquisitors' hands moved toward sidearms. Speaking without permission before the Inquisition was heresy. But Inquisitor Cassius, younger, wearing Terminator armor inscribed with purity seals, laughed, actually laughed. "Bold, foolish but bold. Very well, Xenoform, explain your nature in terms we can comprehend." "I'm human, was human. I gained powers to fight monsters called Hollows, corrupted souls that devour the living. I became a soul reaper, a guardian between worlds. Then I discovered I had hollow powers inside me, then Quincy blood. I'm all of them merged together." "Abomination," Covenant stated flatly. "Multiple species merged cannot produce stability, only corruption." "I've been stable for years," Ichigo countered. "I've saved my world multiple times, protected both the living and the dead. My power doesn't corrupt, it protects." "Prove it." The challenge came from Inquisitor Ravenor, a psyker whose body had been destroyed centuries ago. He existed now only as a consciousness within a hovering life support throne. "Your hollow nature, this mask the custodians reported. Manifest it. Show us." Ichigo hesitated. Every time the mask appeared, these people saw demons, but refusing would damn him just as quickly. He reached inward, touching the hollow power that coiled in his soul. White materialized across his face, bone-white mask with red markings, horned and terrible. His voice distorted, deeper, resonant with power that made reality shiver. 20 Inquisitors opened fire immediately. Bolt rounds, plasma, melta. Ichigo's Blut Vinae flared instinctively, Quincy defensive power absorbing impacts that should have vaporized him. The blessed ammunition burned, but he held firm. The mask stayed in place. "Hold!" Ravenor's psychic command froze the firing squad. "Look closer. The warp does not touch him. No demonic presence, no corruption signature. Whatever that mask is, it is not warp spawn." Covenant's augmetic eyes whirred, analyzing. "Impossible. All entities of that power signature carry warp taint. Unless the power source is not the warp at all." "My power comes from my soul," Ichigo said through the mask, then dismissed it. The white bone vanished. "Not your warp. I didn't even know what the warp was until an hour ago." Cassius leaned forward. "If true, that makes you either the greatest weapon against chaos ever discovered, or the greatest threat. Power that operates outside the warp's influence could tip the eternal war. Or doom us all," Covenant argued. "Unknown variables are dangerous. The Emperor's Imperium has survived 10,000 years by eliminating threats, not studying them." "The Emperor ordered investigation, not execution," Inquisitor Eisenhorn reminded her, "and I propose a test. The Grey Knights reported his blade damaged their psychic wards, that his strikes carried properties similar to demon-killing weapons. Let us see if those properties are real." From a stasis field, they brought forth a cage. Inside writhed something that Ichigo's stomach turned. A small demon, a nurgling, bloated and diseased. It giggled with the voice of plague and rot. Banishment is temporary. When we destroy demons in the materium, they return to the warp to reform. True death for warp entities is considered impossible. If your power can achieve it, you prove your value. They released the nurgling. It lunged at him with surprising speed, claws extended, mouth wide. Zangetsu sang. One strike, clean, precise. The blade passed through the demon's essence, and Ichigo felt it. The same sensation as cutting a hollow. His Zanpakuto didn't just damage the physical manifestation, it severed the spiritual connection itself. The nurgling's scream turned to absolute silence. Then it dissolved, not banished back to the warp, but erased, gone, permanently. The chamber erupted in shocked vox chatter, 50 inquisitors speaking at once, their doctrines shattered by what they'd witnessed. "By the golden throne," Cassius whispered. "He killed it, actually killed it." "Demon-killing capability confirmed," Covenant said, her voice strained. "Threat assessment elevated, weapon potential elevated. This changes everything." Eisenhorn rose from his seat. "The question before us is no longer what is he? The question is, does he serve the Imperium, or does the Imperium serve him to an execution chamber?" All eyes turned to Ichigo, waiting for his answer to a question that would determine if he lived or died. But before he could speak, the chamber's vox crackled with emergency transmission. "Inquisitorial conclave, this is astropathic core delta, massive warp disturbance, 4 separate entities manifesting psychic signatures. They're calling for the xenoform by name." Ichigo's blood ran cold. He felt it too. 4 vast presences in the warp, each one hungry and ancient.
The whispers came in 4 voices, each one promising salvation through damnation. Ichigo felt them the moment the astropath screamed warnings. His spiritual senses, already strained by Terra's psychic maelstrom, suddenly detected presences that made even the Soul King's power feel small. These weren't beings, they were concepts given consciousness, emotions made manifest, nightmares that had devoured galaxies. "Blood for the blood god!" The first voice was brass and fury, a roar that promised endless battle. "You are warrior perfected, skull taker, blade master, serve Khorne, know glory eternal." Ichigo staggered as images flooded his mind, himself standing atop mountains of corpses, Zangetsu dripping with the blood of billions. Every battle he'd ever won magnified, perfected, made eternal. The voice showed him power beyond imagining, strength to shatter worlds, speed to outpace light, combat prowess that would make him a god of war. All he had to do was accept that war was the only truth, that killing was the highest art, that honor came only through the spilling of blood. "Get out of my head," Ichigo growled, spiritual pressure flaring against the intrusion. "Knowledge is power, and power is yours to claim." The second voice was silk and ambition, a whisper that promised understanding. "You seek answers, hybrid soul. I am Tzeentch, architect of fate. I alone comprehend what you are, what you could become."
New visions, Ichigo transcending his limitations, mastering powers from 1,000 realities. The changer of ways showed him the secrets of the warp, the threads of causality themselves. He could learn to navigate between universes at will, return home, save everyone, become something beyond God or mortal. The price? Embrace change without end, accept that nothing, not loyalty, not love, not truth, was permanent. Become a creature of pure ambition, forever scheming, forever evolving, forever hollow at the core. "I don't want that," Ichigo said through gritted teeth. The Inquisitors watched in horror as reality warped around him, psychic manifestations of the dark god's attention. "Grandfather loves all his children." The third voice was diseased affection, rot given kindness. "You fight entropy, little soul. You struggle against inevitable decay. But Nurgle offers acceptance. No more pain, no more loss, only eternal life in joyous decomposition." The vision made Ichigo's stomach heave. His friends, his family, all preserved forever in states of living death, immortal through disease, laughing as their bodies rotted, finding happiness in corruption. No one would ever die, no one would ever suffer ending. They would simply decay eternally, together in putrid bliss. "That's not life," Ichigo spat. "That's giving up." Sensation beyond mortal comprehension. The fourth voice was pleasure and agony intertwined, Slanesh's seduction. "Your power is beautiful, hybrid soul. Your determination exquisite, but you have never truly felt the heights of what you could experience. Perfection awaits." This vision was the most insidious, not corruption, but enhancement. Ichigo's every sense heightened beyond imagining, every battle becoming ecstasy, every victory a rush beyond description. The Prince of Excess showed him a path where protecting others became the ultimate pleasure, where heroism itself transformed into addiction. All four voices spoke as one. "The Emperor offers only servitude. We offer apotheosis. Choose." "I choose to tell you all to go to hell." Ichigo's spiritual pressure erupted, his Reiatsu blazing with such intensity that even the custodians stepped back. His hollow mask flickered across his face, then vanished. His Quincy powers sparked, his Shinigami essence burned pure. The Chaos Whispers recoiled, surprised. "I've faced corruption before," Ichigo continued, his voice steady, despite the cosmic pressure bearing down. "I fought my inner hollow for control and won. I resisted Aizen's hypnosis. I overcame Ewok's power to rewrite the future itself. You think I'll bow to you just because you're loud?" "Foolish child," Korn snarled. "We are eternal. We are inevitable. So was every enemy I've ever beaten, and they're all gone now." The psychic pressure intensified, reality itself beginning to tear. The Inquisitors were shouting orders, Grey Knights forming defensive circles, custodians preparing for demon manifestation. Then Ravenor's voice cut through the chaos. "He's resisting all four simultaneously. That should be impossible. Even Primarchs fell to single gods." Covenant's augmentic eyes widened. His soul structure, it's rejecting warp influence at the fundamental level. The hybrid nature makes him anathema to corruption. He literally cannot be turned. "Not yet," Zinch whispered, already planning. But time is our ally. Every moment in this galaxy brings him closer to us. The warp touches all things eventually. The four presences withdrew, but not before leaving a final message that every psyker on Terra heard simultaneously. The hybrid soul is ours to claim. Any who shelter him shall know our wrath. Any who use him as weapon shall find their blade turns against them. The great game has a new piece, and we shall see who moves it best. Silence fell in the inquisitorial chamber. Eisenhorn spoke first, his voice shaken. The dark gods have declared interest, openly. That hasn't happened since the Horus heresy. He resisted them, Cassius said, awe and terror mixing in his tone. Four gods of chaos simultaneously, and he resisted. Which makes him either our greatest asset or the catalyst for a second heresy that will tear the Imperium apart, Covenant concluded, her augmentic eyes fixed on Ichigo. I didn't ask to come here, but I'm not going to let those things control me, or you. So the question is, do we fight each other, or do we fight them? Before anyone could answer, a new presence entered the chamber.
Rabuta Guilliman filled the doorway like a living myth. The Primarch of the Ultramarines stood 13 feet tall, armor of blue and gold humming with ancient technology. His face was classically handsome, stern with the weight of 10,000 years of failure. The Emperor's sword hung at his side, a blade that could carve through reality itself. But it was his eyes that struck Ichigo, ancient, exhausted, and utterly without illusion. Every inquisitor in the chamber dropped to one knee. Even the custodians inclined their heads. Only Ichigo remained standing, chains rattling. Lord Guilliman, Covenant breathed, we did not expect. The Chaos Gods broadcast their interest across half the segmentum. I came to see what could possibly make all four unite in their attention. His gaze fixed on Ichigo. And I find a child in chains who just told the ruinous powers to go to hell. I'm not a child, Ichigo said flatly, and those things aren't gods, just parasites that got too big. Several inquisitors gasped at the blasphemy. Guilliman's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Amusement? Recognition? Release him, the Primarch commanded. My lord, he is dangerous, Covenant began. So am I. Guilliman's tone allowed no argument. Release him, now. The null shackles fell away. Ichigo rubbed his wrists, feeling his spiritual pressure flow freely again. The burns from blessed silver were already healing, his hollow regeneration working despite this reality's hostility. Guilliman approached, studying Ichigo like a tactical problem. You can kill daemons permanently. You resist chaos corruption. You operate outside the warp's influence, and you stood before my father and refused to serve. He paused. You remind me of someone, me, before I learned that idealism dies in this galaxy. Sounds like you gave up, Ichigo said. The chamber froze. No one spoke to a Primarch that way. Guilliman stared at Ichigo for a long moment, then did something unexpected. He laughed, a bitter, tired sound. Gave up? No. I learned the difference between what should be and what must be. Guilliman gestured to the chamber's viewing port, showing Terra's hive cities stretching to the horizon.
You see slavery, I see survival. You see cruelty, I see the minimum necessary evil required to keep humanity from extinction. There's always another choice, Ichigo insisted. Is there? Guilliman's voice hardened. Let me tell you about choices, Ichigo Kurosaki. I have governed this imperium for a century since my awakening. Every day I make choices, sacrifice this world to save that sector, conscript these billions to hold that line, burn this library of irreplaceable knowledge to deny it to chaos. He moved to the viewing port, staring out at the planet he'd helped build 10,000 years ago. I choose to let children starve in manufacturums because feeding them means fewer lasguns for the soldiers protecting their world from tyrannids. I choose to execute entire planetary populations suspected of taint because quarantine might let corruption spread. I choose to perpetuate the Emperor's lie that he is a god because faith is the only weapon that keeps humanity fighting when reason would demand surrender. Guilliman turned to Ichigo. So tell me, warrior from a gentler universe, what would you choose? Let one world burn to save 10? Let 1 billion die to save 1 trillion? Where is the line between necessary evil and simple evil? Ichigo met the Primarch's gaze. I'd find a way to save both. There is no way to save both. Guilliman's frustration cracked through his composure. That is what this galaxy teaches with every breath. The Imperium is a rotting corpse, held together by faith and violence. I hate what it has become. I hate what I must do to preserve it. But if I do nothing, humanity ends, not diminished, not enslaved, extinct. Silence hung heavy. Ichigo wanted to argue, but he'd seen the orbital defenses, the endless soldiers, the scale of threat this Imperium faced. He thought of his own choices, letting Ulquiorra kill him to protect Orihime, nearly killing his friends while hollow-fied, stabbing Rukia to save her. Sometimes there were no clean answers. The daemons, Ichigo said. You said I can kill them permanently. Show me. Guilliman's expression shifted. You want to fight? I want to understand what I'm up against. Ichigo's hand went to Zangetsu. The blade's edge gleamed with spiritual pressure made manifest. He moved. Shunpu carried him across the chamber in a blink. Zangetsu struck true, cutting through psychic wards and blessed chains as if they were paper. The daemon's laughter died. Its form began to dissolve, not banished, but ending, truly ending. No, it whispered, genuine fear in his voice for thousands of years. This is not, I cannot, Tzinch save your... Silence. The daemon was gone, not scattered, erased. Guilliman stared at the empty chains. Emperor's blood. You didn't just kill it, you unmade it.
Every daemon we've ever destroyed returns to the warp, Guilliman said, his voice barely above a whisper. They reform, they return, they are eternal, until now. Ichigo sheathed Zangetsu, breathing hard. The strike had taken more energy than expected. Cutting a daemon's essence felt like severing connections to something vast and hostile. In my world, hollows are corrupted souls. My Zanpakuto purifies them, sends them to soul society. But daemons, he paused. There's nothing to purify. They're just corruption given form, so the blade erases them completely. Do you understand what this means? Covenant stepped forward, augmetic eyes glowing with fevered intensity. 10,000 years of war against chaos, trillions dead fighting an enemy that cannot truly die, and you render that immortality meaningless with a single strike.
The Chaos Gods will never stop hunting him, Ravenor's psychic voice resonated through the chamber. They cannot allow a weapon like this to exist unopposed. Which is why we must decide now. Gilliman turned to face the assembled inquisitors and custodians. The Emperor ordered us to determine his use. I am determining it. Ichigo Kurosaki will accompany me. My lord, Cassius stepped forward. Accompany you where? To war. Gilliman's expression was grim. Astropathic reports indicate a chaos incursion in the Scarus sector. World Eater's warband, possibly led by a Daemon prince. Billions of Imperial citizens at risk. I was preparing to deploy with the Ultramarines' 3rd Company when I received word of this incident. He gestured to Ichigo. Now I have a new asset. I'm not an asset, and I don't take orders. Then consider it a request, Gilliman replied, surprising everyone. You want to understand this galaxy? See what we face? Come with me. Witness what the Imperium fights against. Watch what happens when chaos is allowed to spread unchecked. Then decide if our methods are truly as evil as you believe. Ichigo studied the Primarch. There was a challenge there, but also something genuine. Gilliman wanted him to see the truth with his own eyes, wanted him to understand that the Imperium's brutality wasn't casual cruelty, but desperate necessity. Fine, Ichigo said, but I fight my way. I protect people, and if I see your Imperium doing something that's just evil for evil's sake, I'll stop it. Fair enough. Gilliman extended his armored hand. Though you may find the line between necessary and unnecessary evil is harder to see in practice than theory. Ichigo shook the Primarch's hand, feeling the barely restrained strength in that grip. Gilliman could have crushed his bones without effort, but held back with perfect control. Lord Gilliman, this is irregular, Covenant began. Irregular? The entire Imperium is irregular. We worship my father as a god when he despised religion. We've lost technologies that could have saved billions. We execute those who might innovate because innovation might be heresy. Everything about our current state is irregular, Inquisitor. At least this irregularity might actually win battles. He turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and remove him from your threat registers. Anyone who attempts to execute, capture, or study Ichigo Kurosaki without my express permission will answer to me personally. Am I clear? Every Inquisitor nodded. No one argued with a Primarch. The strike cruiser Makrage's honor hung in Terra's orbit like a cathedral in the void. Ichigo stood on the observation deck, watching the cradle of humanity shrink behind them as they entered the warp. First time? A voice asked behind him. Ichigo turned to find an ultramarine in blue power armor, the helmet maglocked to his belt. The Space Marine's face was scarred, gene-enhanced features sharp and alert. Captain Sicarius, 2nd Company, he introduced himself. The Lord Primarch asked me to brief you on our mission parameters. I'm just here to fight chaos, Ichigo said. What else do I need to know? Sicarius's expression hardened. You need to know what we're facing. The World Eaters were once the Warhans, the Emperor's 12th Legion, loyal. Now they serve Khorne through madness and slaughter. They implanted their own brains with the butcher's nails, pain engines that kill them slowly while making them unstoppable berserkers. They chose to become monsters? Yes, now they are simply monsters. Sicarius pulled up a hololith display showing a world consumed by fire. The Scarus sector capital, 3 billion souls. The World Eaters made planetfall 6 weeks ago. Current population estimate, 400 million. The rest are dead or worse. Ichigo's hands clenched. And we're just getting there now? The warp is not a highway exoform. Travel times are unpredictable. We've been en route since the moment we received the distress call. Sicarius's voice held barely suppressed anger. This is what the Imperium faces daily. Millions of worlds, billions of threats. We cannot be everywhere. Then we save who we can. Ichigo looked at the tactical display. Where do we deploy? The primary hive city, Hive Secundus. 10 million refugees trapped in the upper spires. The World Eaters are assaulting from below, killing everything in their path. Our mission is to hold long enough for evacuation transports. Sicarius met Ichigo's eyes. We expect 90% casualties, but 10% of 10 million is still 1 million lives saved. What about the other 90%? We give them the Emperor's mercy, a quick death instead of slow torture under chaos. Sicarius's voice was flat, emotionless. This was simply fact. This is war in the 41st millennium. We count victories in degrees of loss, not triumph. The ship lurched as it translated out of the warp. Through the viewport, Ichigo saw a world burning and realized that Gilliman was right. This was going to change everything
from the
he thought he
Thunderhawk
knew
gunship
about
into a
necessary
nightmare.
evil.
The hive city stretched kilometers into ash-choked sky, each level a sprawling metropolis stacked atop another. Smoke poured from shattered hab blocks. Bodies, thousands of them, carpeted the streets in spreading pools of crimson. And through it all, the World Eaters carved their path upward. They were monsters wearing the mockery of Space Marine armor, red and brass, covered in skulls and dried gore. Some had grown horns, others sported mutations that twisted their frames into demonic parodies. The demon nails protruding from their skulls sparked and whirred, driving them into killing frenzy. "For the blood god!" one roared, chainsword tearing through fleeing civilians. "Skulls for the skull throne!" Ichigo moved before thought. Shunpo carried him across 200 meters in a heartbeat. Zangetsu met the chainsword mid-swing, stopping it cold. The World Eater's eyes widened behind his helmet. Nothing should have matched his gene-enhanced strength. "Get away from them," Ichigo said quietly. The berserker laughed, voice distorted by the nail's agony. "Fresh skull, Korn will—" Zangetsu flashed. The World Eater's head hit the ground before his body understood it was dead. Around Ichigo, the Ultramarines deployed in perfect formation. Bolter fire thundered, each round explosive and precise. Captain Sicarius led the advance, power sword crackling as he carved through traitor Marines. But for every World Eater that fell, 3 more charged forward, heedless of death. "Defensive positions," Sicarius commanded. "Protect the evacuation route." Ichigo glanced back. Thousands of civilians were fleeing up the hab levels toward extraction points. Mothers carrying children, elderly hobbling on makeshift crutches, workers still covered in factory grime, all terrified, all running for lives that statistics said they wouldn't keep. A roar shook the entire hive level. Something massive emerged from the lower levels, twice the size of a normal space marine, armor fused to demonically mutated flesh. Chain axes the size of Ichigo's body dripped with souls screaming blood. Reality warped around it, the warp bleeding through where its presence weakened the materium. "Demon Prince," Sicarius breathed. "Vox the Lord Primarch, tell him we have a—" The Demon Prince moved with impossible speed. Its axe came down on an Ultramarine, splitting power armor and gene-enhanced body in one strike. The Space Marine died instantly, decades of service ending in a splash of red. Ichigo felt it then, the same wrongness as a hollow, but worse. This thing wasn't just corrupted, it was chaos made flesh, a living wound in reality. And it saw him. "The hybrid soul," the Demon Prince's voice was brass and blood. "Korn promised me your skull personally." It charged. Each footfall cracked ferrocrete. The chain axes howled with demon-forged hunger.
Ichigo met the charge head-on. Zangetsu caught the first axe, spiritual pressure flaring to match the demon's strength. The impact shattered windows across 3 city blocks. The second axe came for his head. Ichigo ducked, feeling the blade pass close enough to cut hair. "You're strong," the demon prince acknowledged, circling, "but strength alone serves only corn. Join us, hybrid. Your blade thirsts for blood as much as mine." "My blade protects people," Ichigo shot back. "Yours just kills them." "In this galaxy, there is no difference." The demon prince attacked again, both axes spinning in patterns that should have been impossible for something that size. Ichigo's Bankai speed kept him ahead, barely. Each parry sent shockwaves through his arms. This thing was stronger than most Espada, faster than it had any right to be, and the warp corruption around it made his hollow powers scream warnings. Behind them, the Ultramarines fought desperately to hold the line. More World Eaters poured up from below. Bolter fire was constant, thunder. Chainswords shrieked against power armor, and the civilians kept running, kept dying. Ichigo saw a mother stumble, her child crying. A World Eater charged toward them, chain axe raised. Time seemed to slow. Ichigo calculated distances. He could reach them, but that meant turning his back on the demon prince, meant exposing himself to an attack that would kill him. But the woman and child would die if he didn't. Gilliman's words echoed, "Let one die to save 10? Where is the line?" "There is no line," Ichigo growled. His spiritual pressure exploded outward, forcing the demon prince back 3 steps. "I save everyone." He moved. Shunpo carried him past the demon prince, past the chaos of battle. His blade intercepted the chain axe inches from the woman's face. The traitor marine staggered back, confused. Don't give him time to recover. Getsuga Tensho erupted from Zangetsu's blade, a crescent wave of pure spiritual energy that carved through the World Eater and 3 others behind him. The attack didn't just kill them, it erased their corrupted souls, leaving nothing for Korn to reclaim. "Run!" Ichigo shouted to the mother. She grabbed her child and fled. The demon prince's axe caught Ichigo across the back. Pain, searing, absolute pain, as demon-forged blades carved through his shihakusho and into flesh. Blood sprayed. Ichigo crashed into a wall, vision blurring. "Foolish," the demon prince loomed over him. "You chose 2 worthless lives over your own. This is why you cannot win in our galaxy. Sentiment is weakness. Mercy is failure. Only strength matters." Ichigo struggled to rise, blood pouring from the wound. His hollow regeneration was fighting the demon corruption in the cut, barely keeping pace. Around him, Ultramarines were dying, civilians were dying. The evacuation would fail because he'd made the wrong choice. No, not wrong, never wrong to save someone, but maybe not enough. "Is this what you wanted me to see, Gilliman?" Ichigo coughed blood. "That I can't save everyone?" The demon prince raised both axes for the killing blow. Then reality tore open, and Robauti Gilliman stepped through, the Emperor's sword blazing with holy fire.
The Emperor's... Gilliman moved with gene-forged perfection, each strike carrying the weight of 10,000 years of warfare. The blade, wrought by the Emperor himself, burned with anathemic fire that made Daemons scream just to perceive it. The Daemon Prince tried to parry, but its chain axes shattered against holy adamantium. "You dare!" the creature roared. "I've killed greater daemons than you," Gilliman said coldly. "You're just another symptom of this galaxy's rot." The Primarch's blade took the Daemon Prince's head. The body dissolved, banished back to the warp. Not permanently dead, only Ichigo's Zangetsu could do that, but gone for now.
Gilliman turned to Ichigo, who was struggling to stand. Blood still seeped from the wound across his back, though hollow regeneration was slowly closing it. "You tried to save 2 lives and nearly died for it." "They're alive, aren't they?" Ichigo gasped. "They are. The evacuation failed everywhere else. 40,000 dead in the past 10 minutes. Gilliman's voice was matter-of-fact, clinical. "You saved 2. I saved you. The Ultramarines saved perhaps 5,000 more. The rest are gone." The words hit harder than the Daemon Prince's axes. "There were millions here," Ichigo said. "Yes." Gilliman extended his hand, pulling Ichigo to his feet with ease. "And we saved what we could. That is victory in the 41st millennium. Not triumph, survival." Around them, the battle continued, but the tide had turned with the arrival of the Primarch. Ultramarines pressed forward in disciplined squads. World Eaters, without their leader, began falling back to regroup. The evacuation transports lifted off, packed with refugees. Too few. Always too few. "I can't accept this," Ichigo said through gritted teeth. His hollow mask flickered across his face. Instinct wanting to fight, to rage, to save everyone through sheer force. "There has to be another way." "Then find it," Gilliman challenged. "I mean that, sincerely. If you discover some method that lets us save more without losing everything, I will implement it immediately. But until then, we do what we must." Sicarius approached, removing his helmet. His face was grim. "Final count. 7,000 refugees extracted. 2nd squad lost. 5th squad at 50% strength. The hive lower levels are unsalvageable. Recommend orbital bombardment." "Approved," Gilliman said without hesitation. "Burn everything below level 300. Deny the World Eaters their trophies." Ichigo's eyes widened. "You're going to bomb your own city? There could be survivors down there." "There are no survivors," Sicarius corrected. "Only the dead and those wishing they were. Orbital fire will grant them the Emperor's mercy." "Let me check first," Ichigo insisted. "My Reiatsu sense can detect souls. If there are people alive—" "Then what?" Gilliman interrupted. "We delay bombardment, giving chaos more time to corrupt them. Risk my men going deeper into a kill zone for a handful of traumatized civilians who may already be lost." The truth sat heavy between them. Every second of delay meant more resources spent, more soldiers at risk, more worlds going undefended elsewhere because they were here. But Ichigo couldn't shake the image of that mother and child, 2 lives that statistics said weren't worth saving. "Give me 5 minutes," he said through gritted teeth. "I'll sweep the lower levels. If I find survivors, I bring them up. If I find World Eaters, I'll kill them. Either way, you can bomb after." Gilliman studied him for a long moment, then nodded. 5 minutes, not 6, not 7. "Sicarius, ready the bombardment." Ichigo didn't waste time arguing. He descended into hell. The lower hive levels were worse than anything in Hueco Mundo, bodies stacked like cordwood, blood painting the walls in arterial sprays, altars built from skulls, offerings to the blood god, and the smell, copper and rot, and something fouler that made his stomach heave. His Reiatsu sense swept outward, searching for life, for souls that hadn't been snuffed out or corrupted beyond recognition. There, a cluster of maybe 30 signatures, weak but pure, hiding in a collapsed transit station. Ichigo found them huddled in darkness, workers, children, a handful of PDF troopers who'd lost their weapons. They stared at him with hollow eyes that had seen too much. "Can you walk?" he asked. An older man, face covered in soot, nodded slowly. The World Eaters, they're everywhere." "Not anymore," Ichigo gestured upward. "The evacuation's 300 levels up. I can get you there if you move fast." "Why? Why save us? We're nobody." Ichigo met her eyes. "Because you're alive. That's enough."
He led them up through hab levels that groaned with structural damage. Twice they encountered stragglers, world-eaters separated from their warband, still hunting. Zangetsu ended them permanently, souls erased before Korn could reclaim them. When they reached the evacuation level, Gilliman was waiting. He looked at the 30 survivors, then at Ichigo. 4 minutes, 40 seconds, Gilliman said. You found 30 souls in a hive of millions. Was it worth it? Ask them, Ichigo replied, helping an elderly woman onto the transport. Gilliman watched the refugees board. For just a moment, something crossed his ancient face. Not quite hope, but perhaps the memory of what hope used to feel like. Orbital strike authorized, he voxed. Fire on my mark. The sky lit up. Lance strikes from orbit carved through the hive's lower levels, incinerating everything below level 300. Billions of tons of ferroconcrete collapsed inward. The altar temples to Korn burned. And 30 people lived who would have died. You proved your point, Gilliman said as they boarded the Thunderhawk. Sometimes individuals matter, but Ichigo, remember that while you saved 30 here, 2 worlds in other sectors fell because we were delayed. The equation never balances. The cost is always higher than the gain. Ichigo looked back at the burning hive. Then I'll just have to get faster. For the first time, Gilliman smiled. A small, tired expression.
The Makrage's honor translated back into real space above Terra 3 weeks later. 3 weeks of war zones, of hive cities burning, of chaos cultists and demon incursions that tested every limit Ichigo possessed. His Shiakusho was torn and stained. Zangetsu's blade carried notches from demon-forged weapons. But he was alive, and he'd learned what the Imperium truly faced. "The Emperor wishes to see you," Gilliman said as they walked the ship's corridors. Alone. Ichigo nodded. He'd expected this. The God Emperor had tested him once with psychic invasion. Now came the real test, what he'd do with the knowledge he'd gained. The Golden Throne Chamber felt different this time, less oppressive. Or perhaps Ichigo had simply grown accustomed to the weight of divine attention pressing down on his soul. "You have seen." The Emperor's voice resonated directly into his mind. "You have witnessed the Imperium's necessity. Do you still judge us?" "Yes," Ichigo said without hesitation. "What you've built is monstrous. The suffering, the waste, the way you treat human lives like ammunition." He paused, meeting those ancient, inhuman eyes. "But I also understand why. I've seen what you're fighting, the scale of it, the endless war." "And your conclusion?" Ichigo stepped closer to the throne, ignoring the custodian's warning tension. "The Imperium's brutality keeps humanity alive, but it's also killing humanity's soul. You've survived 10,000 years, but what have you survived as? Slaves to fear and dogma. Better slaves than extinct." "Maybe." Ichigo's hand rested on Zangetsu's hilt. "But I've also learned something else these past weeks. My power works here. I can kill demons permanently, end chaos champions for good. That changes the equation." The Emperor's psychic presence sharpened, focused. "You believe you can alter the balance of the eternal war." "I know I can." Ichigo's spiritual pressure flared, filling the chamber with power that made reality shiver. "I fought demons that had terrorized sectors for millennia, erased them, permanently. No return, no reformation, just gone. The Chaos Gods can't stop me if I'm fast enough, strong enough." "Arrogance. You are one being against infinity. So were you once." Ichigo shot back. "Before you became this, before you let yourself die slowly on a chair while your empire rots." He gestured to the Golden Throne's life support systems. "You told me sentiment was weakness, that individual lives don't matter against galactic threats. But you're wrong." The temperature plummeted. Custodians raised guardian spears. The Emperor's psychic pressure intensified until reality itself groaned. "Explain." "Those 30 people I saved in Hive Secundus," statistically meaningless, right? But one of them was an engine seer who knew how to repair a specific pattern of plasma generator. She's already back at work, keeping void shields operational on a fortress world. Another was a sergeant who's training new PDF recruits, soldiers who will hold lines against the next chaos incursion. Ichigo's voice strengthened. You see numbers. I see potential. Every person saved is someone who might change something, might inspire someone else, might be the difference in a future battle you can't predict. Idealistic, impractical. Is it? Ichigo challenged. Because I've noticed something. Everywhere I went with Guilliman, wherever I saved people instead of just fighting efficiently, morale improved. Soldiers fought harder. Civilians cooperated more. Hope, actual hope, spread. Your Imperium runs on faith and fear. What if you added hope to that? The silence stretched. Then, impossibly, the Emperor's withered lips moved. Not psychic speech, actual words, rasping and ancient. Hope is the first step on the road to disappointment. Maybe, Ichigo acknowledged, but it's also the only reason to keep fighting. You've survived 10,000 years without it. Imagine what humanity could do with it. The Chaos Gods will hunt you eternally. The Inquisition will never fully trust you. Even my son Guilliman sees you as a useful tool, not an ally. You will stand alone. I've been alone before. Ichigo's expression hardened with memory. Fighting Grimjaw, facing Ulquiorra, standing against Yuvok when all seemed lost. It's nothing new. Then hear my judgment. The Emperor's psychic presence filled every corner of the chamber. You will not serve the Imperium, but neither will you oppose it. You will be independent, a rogue element in the great game. Fight chaos as you see fit. Save who you can. Prove your philosophy through action, not words. And if I end up fighting your Imperium when it goes too far, then we will see who is correct, the dying god or the idealistic warrior. Something that might have been grim amusement colored the psychic voice. I have spent 10 millennia watching humanity survive through brutality. Perhaps it is time to see if there is another way. You will be my experiment in hope. The Emperor's attention shifted, looking beyond the chamber to the galaxy burning in eternal war. Go, Ichigo Kurosaki, challenge my methods, prove me wrong if you can, but know this, should you fall to chaos, should your hope become corruption, I will have you destroyed, permanently. Fair enough. Ichigo turned to leave, then paused one more time. One more thing. You're dying on that throne, slowly burning out while your empire worships you as a god. Have you ever considered that maybe you're wrong about that too? That maybe there's a way to heal instead of just endure? Careful, hybrid soul. That path leads to questions I have spent 10 millennia avoiding. Maybe it's time to stop avoiding them. Ichigo walked toward the chamber doors. The custodians parted to let him pass, grudgingly, but they obeyed their master's will. Behind him, the Emperor's voice echoed one final time. Perhaps, in another 10 millennia, we shall see who was right. Ichigo stood on the Macrage's Honors observation deck, watching Terra recede. Guilliman approached, his armor still bearing scorch marks from their latest battle. The Emperor told me his decision, Guilliman said. You're free to go. No chains, no obligations. But I would ask something of you anyway. Guilliman stared out into the stars. Continue what you started. Fight chaos your way. Save individuals when you can. And when you inevitably clash with imperial doctrine, when our methods are too brutal, our sacrifice is too great, remember what you saw. Remember why we make these choices. I will, Ichigo promised. And when I find a better way, I'll show you. I hope you do. Guilliman's expression was tired but sincere. The Imperium needs hope.
even if it's brought by someone who tells us we're wrong. A Thunderhawk awaited to take Ichigo to a departing vessel, a rogue trader who'd agreed to provide transport in exchange for entertaining stories. From there, the galaxy awaited. Chaos warbands to destroy, demons to erase, people to save, one impossible choice at a time. As Ichigo embarked on the transport, he felt the four Chaos Gods' attention focus on him once more, hungry, patient, certain that eventually this universe would break him like it broke everything else. He smiled grimly. They'd learned the same lesson Aizen had, the same lesson Yuvok discovered. Ichigo Kurosaki didn't break. He just got back up and kept fighting. In the grim darkness of the far future, there was only war. But now there was also hope, even if it came from someone who shattered the warp itself to arrive. The Administratum would record the incident as file designation Hybrid Anomaly Kurosaki, a Xenos entity of unprecedented power that defied classification, resisted chaos corruption, and possessed the capability to permanently destroy warp entities. Status: uncontained. Threat level: variable. Current action: none. Subject operates independently, presumed hostile to chaos forces. But the truth was more complex than bureaucratic files could capture. Across the Imperium, whispers spread. A warrior in black who appeared where demons manifested strongest, who fought without faith in the God Emperor, yet displayed powers the Grey Colonels envied, who saved civilians that strategic doctrine deemed expendable, yet somehow made those saves matter in larger battles. The Inquisition debated his nature endlessly. Some called him heretic, others necessary evil. A few radicals dared to suggest he might be the Emperor's answer to the eternal war, a weapon forged outside the Imperium's doctrines, precisely because those doctrines had failed to evolve in 10,000 years. The Chaos Gods watched and plotted. Khorne admired his combat prowess and sought to claim him through endless battle. Tzeentch wove schemes to trap him through curiosity and the promise of understanding his hybrid nature. Nurgle waited patiently for despair to corrupt his hope. Slaanesh whispered of perfecting his powers beyond